Hi everyone, thank you for clicking, thank you for watching. So our first question is, can I learn to play the violin at age 35? So I assume that the person asking the question is 35. And I've built an entire career teaching adults how to play the violin, and so I can categorically say absolutely 100% you can learn. I have taught hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who have made tremendous progress, who have just blown my mind at what they can accomplish in a relatively short amount of time as well, because adults are super learners. They synthesize information, they integrate information, they're self-guiding, they're self-aware. These are skills kids don't have. So it just seems like kids can learn quicker or faster or better, but what it is that we allow kids the gift, we allow them time and years. If you hear an 8 or 9-year-old not playing very well, you're like, yeah, they're a kid, they'll get better, right? Whereas for adults, adult standards for themselves are super high, and no adult says, well, I'm going to sound bad for 5 years and then maybe in 10 years I'll sound a little better. So there's no forgiveness, there's no self-forgiveness. So, and I apologize, I'm very impassioned about this subject. And like I said, I built a career on, with teaching adults to play. So when I created Violin Lab, this was in 2007 is when I started the curriculum development. And it was based on personal experience with adult learners. So I was teaching some adult students, and I was so surprised at how quickly they picked up concepts, and also but how passionate they were about learning and how dedicated and committed they were to their own progress and their learning. And so because of that, they were just really improving at such a fast rate of speed. But what I also felt was that the way they needed to learn didn't really exist. It's not that it didn't exist. I just couldn't really find it. So I'm like, all right, well, I have to do this, myself. And so when I developed the curriculum, I realized that there is a certain immediacy that adults have. Adults need to hear and experience progress regularly and quickly, or else they lose interest. They think, well, I just can't do this. So one of the ways to do that was for me to really break down exactly what professional players do. Exactly what was I doing? Because the general way that people teach violin is to teach it in a way that children learn best. That's not the way adults learn best, because again, children have the luxury of decades. So it was to teach the muscular habits of professionals to adult beginners, right? So if you saw a kid playing, you would just think, okay, they're a kid, they're learning how to play the violin. You don't see kids, especially small children, play with a professional sound and a professional manner of bowing. So this professional manner of bowing is what I teach first. And it's just a series of actions. It is completely doable. And it has proven to me time and time again, watching my adult students learn how to do this. So yeah, 100%, you can. But I will say that there are adults that have quicker success than others. And the ones that do the best, the ones that, again, just blow my mind. And I'm not talking just 30-year-olds. I mean 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-olds. And when I say 80, I mean 80. In fact, I'll put a little link to a student I taught. He was 80. He started when he was 80, and it was about 80. He was about 82, and he really wanted to learn vibrato, and he did. So you can check it out. But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the ones that learn the best are the ones that respect the process. who get it, who know that they can't just say, it's a little boring or tedious for me to learn, the right bow hold. I just want to play some songs. Okay. There is definitely a ceiling for potential if that's the approach. But the people that understand that every skill has to be developed and developed correctly, they're the ones that improve at, quantum speeds. So I hope that gives you, encouragement. You definitely have to have a teacher. You have to have someone who knows their pedagogy. If you don't join Violin Lab, hopefully you have someone in your community that is really, really, really good and who is very comfortable and loves teaching adults. Next question was how to get trills faster. And first concept is to really, really understand and buy into and believe with all your heart is the high correlation between speed and strength. The stronger you are, the stronger your hand, the faster the fingers will be able to move. I mean, just think about runners, right? So sprinters, think about their leg size. They have massive legs, massive muscles versus, like long distance runners. So to go fast, you need stronger muscles. So you need to build that kind of strength regularly. People who play quickly and who play fast well, it's because they do it a lot. And when you're able to do something well, you're more likely to do it often. So, and then vice versa. If you feel like, oh, I can't trill fast, I can't play fast. Oh, well, how often do you really work on trills? Not that much. But if you do a lot of work, spending a lot of time, you will build speed because your hand will get stronger at doing that. I remember in graduate school, I played Revel-Tsagan on a recital. And there's some work where you cover a fifth and then you trill with your third and fourth fingers. And that was pretty fuzzy what you just heard because, I haven't played that since, several decades. And I remember my teacher saying, and I said, I'm not doing this very well. It's not very clear and it's not fast. And he's like, well, your hand's not strong enough. So I started doing these things regularly a lot. And guess what? They got faster. So first of all, it's just you've got to spend a lot of time doing it. The other thing I think that is going to help more also is relaxation, making sure the hand is relaxed because tension is going to slow things down. Even if your hand is really strong, if there's a lot of unnecessary tension, it's going to slow it down. And the stronger the hand is, the easier it is to stay relaxed. So what I want you to think about when you are working on trills is to think about all the fingers that are not trilling. Think about the rest of the hand. Don't think about your trilling finger. Okay? So let's say you're going to trill third finger. Don't think about third finger. How much pressure are you using with your second finger? So ask yourself, you have to start this communication process. What are you using in the way of tendons and muscles and stuff like that? What are you using to keep the string down? Are you squeezing it down? Are you using your thumb? Because if you are putting a lot of squeezing and counter pressure with the thumb, it's going to make the whole hand tight, and then the third finger is going to move more slowly. So practice releasing everything but what's absolutely necessary. And the only thing, and you've got to really tell your hand this many, many times, all it really needs, really and truly, is just a tension right there with the end knuckle. You just press in with that end knuckle. That's all you really need. Now, if your hand is underdeveloped, it's not going to feel like that. So the stronger the hand, then this will be enough. You have to build toward that. So that's all I need. Don't need the thumb. Don't need the first finger. That's what I want you to be aware of when you're practicing a third finger trill. Okay, loose. My first finger loose. Is my second finger. Is my thumb. And then you can do different kinds of exercises. Okay, so One exercise that's in the Simon Fisher Basics book is you're just going to maintain slow bows back and forth, and then you're going to first start with single drops, and don't drop until you feel that relaxation. Don't let your third finger move until you've gotten confirmation from the other fingers that they are relaxed and the thumb. And then when you're ready, you drop. Work your way up. Triples. And then keep checking. Take a piece of music, doesn't matter what it is, and just start from the beginning and trill in sequence the notes. So this is what's open next to my, it's because I just coached someone on the second movement of the Vivaldi. So the note sequence is just okay, so just taking that little sequence, you trill the first one to the second one. Next one. Next one. Next pair. Next pair. And that's just to give yourself something to do while you're practicing trills, because just sitting there practicing trills would be mind-numbing after a while. So, it's just to create some sort of material that you can use to just spend time doing it, spend time doing the trill. So I hope that helps. Now, several of you asked questions that sort of pointed to a generalized level of frustration, whether it was just, kind of from a day-to-day basis, like some days you sound good, some days you don't, to, breaking through thresholds and plateaus to kind of get to the next level. So, first of all, everyone gets frustrated with practice and with learning. That's absolutely normal. It really is the tools that you use to try to improve. Now, you want to make sure, first of all, that you don't have a really obvious, concrete, technical reason that you are being held down or held back or inhibited. It could be that there's just some aspect to some basic technique, whether it's bow hold or a bow mechanics or something that really is preventing progress. So you want to rule that out. And I highly recommend, especially if you're self-guiding, is to get some feedback somehow, and if you have anyone in your community who teaches, don't be afraid to reach out and just say, look, I can't commit to regular lessons for whatever reason, but I would like just a one-off, just an hour of your time to identify any potential obstacles. You can sign up for Violin Lab. Sign up for 1 month, a premium membership for 1 month. Send me a video and I will totally, help you and tell you if there's any way, if there's anything that is preventing you from achieving and your goals. And of course I would, give you concrete ways of improving. And so having said that, I want you to try something, okay? It's out of the box, but look, it wouldn't hurt any of us to do this. And the reason I'm recommending this is because I recommended it to one of my video exchange students. She's playing the Thais, the meditation from Thais, and she's playing it quite well, but she really wants this piece to be one of those that she can play for guests or maybe, visiting family, but just to have something under her belt where she really feels like it sounds professional and polished. So I recommended doing this and it really worked. I was stunned at the difference it made in just her performance level and expression and tone and all that stuff. So I'm going to demonstrate. What I want you to do is to find a performance of whatever it is you're working on, and find something that really moves you, that you want to spend time, that you want to emulate, because the idea is that you are going to try to absorb and try to become more aware of nuance by doing this. Okay, so I'm going to go to a different program so I can capture the screen while I talk. So let me tell you the process. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to just play along with the performance just with the left hand. Okay, so you're going to left hand only. Step 2 is to left hand and air bow. Okay, and then step 3 you will play with the performer. Just left hand. Slides on that second one. So then I'm going to make my little marks because I'm trying to observe everything I can. And the more I do that, and the more you do that, the more you'll notice. Okay, and you'll start to pick up on nuance because it's hard to intuit these things. It's hard to hear a great player and know and be able to identify why the performance is so incredible and so beautiful. But doing this kind of exercise helps you to notice those things that which you can then work to apply. Okay, so next step. Let's say you do that just left hand. Just do left hand for a week. Now you're going to air bow. You're going to air bow. If your part has different bowings and different fingerings, it would be a problem. I personally, if I really were going to do this regularly to really change the game, then I would emulate everything, every bowing, every fingering. Okay, then you do that for a while, then play along. Now, as I was trying this, getting my tech, all set up and everything, I realized that my A is 440, his is probably 442. So even though we're a little off, yeah, my A is lower than their A. I would love it if you try it. I would love to hear from you. If you think it works, it would be great. All right. So this question is about playing in tune in high positions, and it's grisly difficult for everyone. So first of all, the laws of physics make it harder to be in tune because the target just got smaller. If I'm playing, say, an A in first position, and let's say my finger is a little back here, or I rock my finger back a little bit, you know, it's a flat A. Or I go a little bit high, you know, it's a sharp A, but it's still in the realm of A. It's still in the pitch class of A. But up here, if I rock my finger back, I mean, I'm playing a G sharp, right? So I'm already in a new pitch area. So yeah, the target gets smaller and smaller. It's also harder to play up there, just ergonomically, you know, the hand has to be really far around, so it just is less comfortable. I think sometimes people make the mistake of not having their hands in a position where they can get as much strength as they can from the finger. So this isn't going to get it. I mean, the finger isn't really doing a good job of stopping the string, so the tone is not going to be as clear. So the thumb has to be pretty far under, the hand has to be up, that there has to be some curve to the finger so that you can get a more solid tone. And then the bow. Okay, your finger could even be in the right place, but if your bow isn't in the right place, isn't traveling in the correct lane, it can change the pitch. Let me go to a C. So if my bow is here, it sounds flat. If I'm close enough to the bridge, it raised the pitch. So make sure that you are traveling really close to the bridge all the time. All right, there's no other place for the bow to be. Then, okay, so we also have to really try to teach our brains the spatial relationships between fingers. We have to be able to perceive distance and intervallic distance. So I think, you know, a good practice would be to use your open string, your neighboring open string as a drone pitch to check yourself. But first check your perception. So we're going to do some tetrachords, some 4-note scales. We're going to just stick an A major here. So here's my first tetrachord, 3rd position. Go ahead and get your A. Make sure your A is correct. So you check it with your open A. Now, the next placement of your 2nd finger is on a B. It's a whole step. You try to imagine, you try to perceive your best whole step. What does that sound like? You can sing it if you're connected to your voice and you're comfortable singing. I mean, I have a horrible voice, but now I'm going to check that. That finger scooted, I think. Okay, so that B should tune with your open A. Now you might think that, well, that's a hard thing to tune, a B with an A. And it is, but it is tunable. It is tunable. There is best and better and worse, right? So that's not so good. That's better. Okay, I'm gonna go back. Do, re, mi. Okay, now I'm about to crack open the lid on a can of worms here. So I'm gonna play with my open A, and my 3rd finger is gonna be a little bit sharp, and that's okay, because I'm playing in the melodic tuning system, in the tuning system that we use for scales, which means the 3rd note of the scale is a little bit higher, and it's gonna be closer to the 4th note of the scale. All right, so that half step is going to be really tight, but it means that it'll be a little bit sharp to my open A. That's okay. That's what I'm going for. It's a little bit sharp, but it's okay. Because if I get it in tune with the A, I have a just 3rd. Again, I don't want to open up a can of worms right now, but just trust me on this one, okay? Okay, now I'm going to do my fourth. Okay, so that's the process. And then you move, you just keep moving up the fingerboard. You go to the next tetrachord, fourth position. You listen to the whole step, half step, whole step. And you check it with your A. And then you keep going. Okay, and just keep working like that. You can do A minor, and then you can, go to the other strings and do those scales as well. Now, it won't really work with like an A flat major scale or anything like that. Then you would have to have a different source for your drone. But that, I think that is kind of the best way of really imprinting, on your psyche, these relationships and the intonation, and then you learn to start. Your hand will adapt to the spacing, but it has to be clear in your mind first. You have to know what you want to hear before your fingers will consistently, make it. So this question is about, how to get over the feeling of insecurity or hesitancy when you start a piece, because it is true. It is true that you don't know what something is going to sound like. You're not sure if your bow's in the right place. You're not sure if it's in tune. You just it's kind of a leap of faith a little bit. You're just like, I think this is right. And there's a psychology with that, I think, and that is, you are sometimes listening to yourself as if you are being judged, as if someone is listening to you, and probably for most of us, no one's listening to us. We're just, in our own rooms playing, but we still project. We still project that we might be judged. And so at least if you're going to be judged, you at least want the judger to say, or the judge to say, well, it wasn't in tune, and at least they knew they weren't in tune. They were underconfident, so, well, that's good. As opposed to, just plowing in, playing with all this confidence, and then it's wrong. Then you could be judged for being clueless, for not being aware that it was wrong. At least if you're aware of your mistakes, there's some merit to that, right? I think that's the psychology. And certainly practicing in large part is dealing with our own psychology. So it's bad psychology. It really is. And from a technical standpoint, emulating confidence and determination and security, even if you're not sure, in and of itself, improves the outcome. It really does. It really does. I remember playing it was a chamber orchestra in Santa Fe many years ago, and I had a stand partner. We were sitting in the first violin section, and there was some really difficult passage, and it was a little, it was hard, and there was a shift, and it was scary. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember, let's just say it was, up to, as an octave shift. And I just remember not feeling like it was going to happen 100% of the time. So I got together with my stand partner. We, we're in a hotel room, and we were just like, all right, let's practice this together a lot so that we feel confident. And as we were doing this weird thing happened where we noticed a 100% accuracy rate when we physically embodied confidence. When we went like, and we were we were kind of goofing around, but we were like, okay, here we go. And we would play it, and we would lean back and press in and and not shrink away. And it was like, oh, we got it. Okay, that sounded good. And then on purpose, we would do the opposite. We would shrink back. We would bend forward. We would use less bow, use less pressure. And we would, kind of miss it. It was not good. It was not correct. And so it was just this, it was really interesting. And so of course, the trick was in performance, we had to commit. You had to commit to a confident body posture and a confident approach and not shrinking back and playing in full voice, I did make a video about this. So I think it's on YouTube. So I'll put that link. And that is to kind of, essentially, it's kind of like fake it till you make it, right? So what you do is you tell yourself, you adopt in your mind, because we know what it feels like to be confident. So if you assume a posture and an attitude of confidence based on life experience of feeling confident about something, it will completely improve the outcome. It really will. And the brain does something. I don't know what it is, but the brain does something. It all comes together. I don't know why it works so well, but it does. You have nothing to lose. So this question is about block fingering and, are you supposed to do that or not supposed to do that? And sort of the argument is block fingering versus independent fingering. But here's the problem. Most debates or arguments or disagreements is based on the fact that different people have different interpretations and definitions for these words and these terms. And unfortunately, people don't do a good job of clarifying exactly what they mean. So it's largely a problem of semantics. So I'm going to clarify everything. This is probably going to be the longest answer in this video because it's, again, sort of embroiled in these different interpretations and connotations of these terms. So I'm going to try to give you what I think is the history of block fingering, and then give you what I also think are the different interpretations of that. And then I'm going to tell you what's real, the actual facts of playing, okay? So as I have mentioned in other videos, and I think you all know me well enough to know that, I teach. My style of teaching is to teach, the professional way of playing to beginners by breaking everything down into teeny tiny concepts and teaching these concepts. So I don't teach in the conventional way that many people teach, which is to teach extremely young people and players. So this idea of block fingering came about to help little bitty hands and early learners understand the spacings between fingers. All right, so when you first learn to play, it's hard to know where to put your fingers. And it's hard to feel the distances between, the whole steps and half steps. So by using block fingering as a crutch, as a helpful aid in the beginning, right? That's the idea, is to help the hand learn to feel the spacings of the fingers. So this is very, very common. When a teacher is teaching a small child, they have the child assume block finger patterns, again, to feel the scope of how the entire hand frame feels in a certain key, like this. Stop. Put all the fingers down so that the brain starts to memorize how everything feels together. And then, so the student stops, they put all the fingers down, and then they play. Okay, so this idea of blocking the notes in advance really is, it is an instructional aid. It's like, I don't know, using a number line, when you're first learning addition or subtraction. So over time, then, the idea is that a student wouldn't need to do that they have memorized that spacing. The problem is that a lot of these students, and I have seen some, I have actually started teaching students who learned in that way, and they got into such a habit of blocking the fingers that they do it automatically. So then when it comes to just playing, Twinkle Twinkle, they play like this. And they put 3 fingers down. Well, you heard, I just played it out of tune because this is unnatural, totally unnatural. So it becomes a problem, it becomes a habit, and it's difficult for these students who learn in that way to break it. They play scales like that. Okay? So that is what I think is at the root of the debate, is that, people are saying, no, you don't do block fingering. They're talking about that kind of scenario. They're talking about, in particular, descending passages where if you need a third finger, that you have to have the other fingers join in to help third finger. No, that is where this is not a thing. Okay, if you need to put down a third finger, you put down a third finger. You don't need the other fingers. Okay, so there's that. Now here's another issue. Some people talk about block fingering, but they're confusing it a little bit with the real nature of finger action on the violin, which is what I call, and not just me, walking fingers. Okay, this is a whole different thing. So if I'm ascending, let's say I'm going to play okay, well, as I ascend, okay, I am putting one finger down at a time, but I'm not necessarily lifting the previous fingers used because, they're already there. It can be a huge inefficiency to go. It's much more efficient to go, right? Now, let's say I was playing a slow piece and I have an A, and then I have a B, and then I have a C, and then I have a D. These fingers, I don't have these fingers down anymore because for vibrato, they inhibit the amplitude of the vibrato. They inhibit vibrato altogether. So in that case, no, I'm not going to leave fingers down. So that becomes, so whether or not you leave fingers on the string becomes contextual. Depends on the tempo. It depends on if you're going to go back and play those fingers again, Like, a trill is an extreme example. Like, can you imagine playing a trill like this? No. Right? You have to leave it down because you're coming right back to it. Well, broaden that and say, I'm coming right back to this first finger, so I'm just going to leave it down, right? That's more efficient. Okay, we have some more concepts to clarify. So there's another, so the reality of playing a stringed instrument is this. When you're changing fingers and you're on the same string and you're on one string, so I'm not talking about string crossings, but I'm just talking about going from finger to finger on the same string. The string has to always be down, right? So let's say here's second finger and here's third finger. If I put second finger down and then I put third finger down and then I lift up second finger, right? There is a point in time where the string is not all the way being stopped to the fingerboard. As this one's coming up and this one's going down, the string is somewhere in between. It's not all the way up, it's not all the way down, and it's going to make a noise. Okay, so we have to do walking fingers. The new finger has to go down, and then the old finger can release pressure. Because when we do ascending passages, and if we do keep fingers down, we want to release their pressure, okay, after they're used. It doesn't mean they have to fly up, it just means they have to release pressure. So good scale practice would be, as you're ascending, leave the fingers down, but release pressure. So listen, so here's my first finger now. Listen to the, so now it's in harmonic position, which means it's not really pressing it all the way down, but it releases after second finger goes down. Release first finger pressure. Release second finger pressure. So now 1 and 2 are touching, but they're not pressing, because yes, you don't want to have multiple fingers pressing at the same time unless you have to. And the only times you have to are, are a chord where you have to press things down at the same time. And it is taxing on the hand. Okay, so I think sometimes people confuse what really is the concept of walking fingers, sometimes people call that block fingering. So again, I think there are nuances in the definition and it needs to be clarified. So you will see, like in many old editions, in fact, I just started working on some Kreutzer etudes for Violin Lab, and I was looking at these old out of print or, archived public domain editions. The first one was published in 1805, and there's one edition, Hermann Schroeder, I don't know, where he went to the trouble of writing down every instance where you have walking fingers. Like, so with the etude number 2, so it's like leave 2 down until you hit E. Leave third finger down until you play fourth finger. So it went to great detail of visually showing how a finger stays down until the new finger is placed, and then the old finger can release itself. So the only real danger is if you are actually putting fingers down at the same time when you only need one. So like, can you imagine playing like, well, I don't think I could do this. So, and putting these fingers down at the same time. It's so cumbersome. It would be like a basketball player, where he has, like there's 2 basketballs and there's 2 nets and you're trying to hit both at the same time, right? The brain really has to focus on one little thing at a time. It does it very quickly. But if you had to shoot, 2 balls into 2 baskets, whatever focus you did for one is going to dilute the focus for another. So there's no way to have good intonation and play in tune, I can't possibly focus on all 3 fingers and make sure they're all in tune. I need to focus on this one, and then this one, and then this one, right? So I hope that clarifies, what is, I think, meant by, no, don't use block fingering, as opposed to in the very beginning stages of playing, using it as just an initial tool to help feel the distances. Okay, that's okay. But very quickly, I think if that is used that way, it needs to stop so it doesn't become an ingrained habit. And then that, as opposed to, yes, it's okay to leave fingers down in certain passages, but you don't keep them pressed down the whole time they release their pressure, but they can still touch the string, okay? Because in these cases, it is efficient. And I also wanted to throw this in there. I do use the concept of blocking multiple fingers at a time as a tool for for speeding up your playing. Like if you have a fast passage and you need to work on speed, then I have it as a practice technique where you're without the bow, you put as many fingers down as you can at a time. And the purpose of that is just to start sort of to cluster these individual thoughts so that at some point, even though you're still thinking finger to finger, you see the broader picture. So I have a video that explains this, and I'll put the link below. So this question is about like playing in second and fourth positions. Like what good are these positions, and why can't we just play like in first or third or fifth? Because for sure, when you're learning to play and you first learn to shift, you learn third position and then you learn fifth position, and interpreting and reading notes and interpreting the fingers kind of quickly becomes familiar. It's not immediate, but still you work hard and you're like, okay, I understand the fingerings for third position or fifth position. And then you have second and fourth and you're like, oh, wait a minute. So now I've got even finger numbers, like first finger is now on a space note and not a line. And it just kind of becomes a little bit of a nightmare for reading and for knowing what, which finger goes on what note. But the reason for second or fourth position is one of those that becomes so self-evident when you reach this, you have this experience where you're like, thank goodness for second position, because it just solved all kinds of problems. So like play this, play a C major arpeggio in first position. I haven't even reached for this note yet, and I know what I'm going to have to do with my pinky. And it is so far away for me, right? So I'll do it in third position. Ugh, that feels yucky. I'm going across 3 strings. I start on the D string, and then the A string, and then the E string, and I have to play 4, 2, 4, 3. That is just, it's not comfortable to the hand. Let me try second position. That was so easy, right? Play an E flat major scale. Start in third position on an E flat. Ugh, there's a lot of spreading fingers out there. Okay. Now try it in fourth position. So much easier. So the second and fourth positions, they're solutions positions. They are there to solve problems and issues and discomfort in the hand in certain cases where, first or fourth position, or third position isn't working out very well. And there are times where, you're in first position and a quick little move to second position just for the purpose of, say, vibrating on a third finger instead of a fourth finger? I mean, let's just say that you had and you just had to hang on a fourth finger. What if I just went? And then you can use a third finger vibrato. So that was convenient. Just a little shift up to second position, and the shift itself. I'm not playing a song. I'm just making stuff up. But it's like it's very convenient, and it brought more beauty and expression to what first position wasn't really delivering. So this question was about using fourth finger. And if you're just starting, well, not if you're just starting, at any point, at any time in your career of playing the violin, fourth finger is difficult. It's just not the same as the others. It's at a double disadvantage. For one, it's smaller, it's weaker, and it is the furthest away from the fingerboard. You know, the power source is back here, and look how far away it is. So of course it's going to be more difficult. The main thing to do is to develop it, is to nurture strength and stability in the knuckles and power from the muscles that pull the fourth finger, you know, to its placements. There's a lot of things you can do. You can do lots of conditioning work. So there are all kinds of exercises. You can do taps. You can do slides, you know, where you are moving your finger up and down the strings to just really build the coordination of the muscles here. If you look at soloists' hands, I would love to round all of them up. I wish we could do some sort of a study, and you know, all the great soloists in the world, and have them, you know, hold up their hands and we measure their hands. I bet their pinkies are longer. Like, I swear, I think Hilary Hahn has 2 third fingers. I don't even think she has a pinky. But what you do notice is very overdeveloped muscles right here. Like their hands are quite beefy, and particularly here. So this muscle that makes the finger action strong, and with strength comes speed, coordination, accuracy. So it can't, I would say, if you just say, well, I'm just going to use it, you know, sure, over a long period of time, it will get better. But I think we really have to do extra for the pinky, and as well as do some good stretches and warm-ups before. So this really helps, particularly with reaching, is before you play, just really stretch gently, you know, the fingers, you know, the webbing here, and this goes a long way in making it feel a little easier. And then, you know, it's just a matter of conditioning. It really is. Now, I do want to mention something, and there are some teachers that want the pinky to be bent and curved. And if you have really long fingers and you have a really long pinky, it's possible. But if you don't, it's not. So some people, because they have received this instruction, or they think that the pinky has to be curved like the other fingers, like this, they will do strange things, like they'll over-pronate this way, or they'll stick their wrists out this way, and all that does is bring tension into the hand. I think it's cumbersome. I think it can cause pain, particularly for adult beginners. This extra ultra pronation is just not realistic. What is realistic is to build strength. You know, you can build muscle strength at any age, at any time in your life. So that's really the best thing to do. And I've noticed, I mean, personally, that when I'm in periods where I am practicing more and I am trying, you know, to bring strength back into the hand, it is just easier to use. That finger starts to function like the other fingers, and then it doesn't feel like a pinky. It feels like one of the team. So just, you got to work it. You got to work it out. You got to build the strength. I have some exercises on Violin Lab. I have some tapping exercises and some conditioning exercises. You're welcome to check them out there. But yeah, it will come along. But know that every human that has ever played the violin has had to deal with the pinky. This user asked about exercises to improve coordination. And I think it's important to really understand this really important concept, okay? And that is every gesture, whether it's a string crossing or a bow change or a shift or placing a finger, everything happens on this grid, this timing grid, which is pulse, which is a rhythmic framework. And the more steeped your mind is in the pulse of the music that you're playing, the better your hands will be at coming together and working together, right? It's the greater good. It's the global concept. So you are thinking this or whatever the tempo is, and you're laying the groundwork. You're saying, okay, this is where you have to be at this moment in time. Otherwise, your hands are a little bit, freewheeling, and they're really working hard to be together. But the more rhythmic you are, and that starts from being able to feel and conceive of a rhythmic, constant pulse, then the more coordinated your playing will be. Also, you have to have good basic technique. Because let's say that you're trying to play faster and your fingers are going down just fine, but your arm is very locked and you're just swinging, and you can't move your arm faster because you don't have the correct bow mechanics. That's going to cause a coordination problem. If you have a left hand position that does not facilitate good finger action, it's going to cause coordination problems. So you have to start with a good setup, good technique, good basic skills. And then, it's just practice. And this is where practicing with a metronome, I think, has great value, is with coordination, because it will help you stay really centered and glued with a pulse, so that then you give your hands, this goal. You're like, okay, here's where you have to be at this moment in time. All right, let's get it done, and they'll do it. I don't think there's a specific exercise to do, like some people call it. I don't even know, where you stop the finger and then go with the bow. Drop, go, drop, go. And the idea behind that is that you don't start your bow until your finger has stopped the string. I don't think that's a great idea. I don't think it really facilitates coordination, because when your fingers and your bows are working together, it feels very simultaneous. It feels like I am dropping a finger when my bow changes. Now, true, the finger has to get the string down before the bow moves, but it happens at such quantum speeds that, I don't think that this kind of an exercise is very helpful. I think that the best thing you can do is to play scales with a metronome and do different bowing patterns. Okay, so let me turn a metronome on. Now I have this fancy McAdams metronome tuner thing I got on eBay. I mean, any metronome will do, okay? One thing I like this is it sort of it groups these little clicks, and it'll change timbre so you can really feel strong pulses and weak pulses. But now Now that time I just did back and forth strokes. I was emphasizing, I was trying to play with the little pulse. You can do slurs. Etc. Okay, you could do different bowing patterns. You could do bow divisions. Okay, you could do slurring 2 notes and then doing 2 separate notes. So by attaching the very core of your being to the metronome, that will do more than anything. That will do so much for coordination. It really will. So we have a question about the bow bouncing in the context of a bowing pattern where you have 3 notes slurred and then 1 note is not slurred. So I'm assuming it's written like this. So down bow 3 notes and then 1 note that is not slurred. So, first of all, you have a disparity in bow speed. You have slow, fast, slow, fast, slow. And that can create a little bit of, tension in the right arm, especially where you have to slow the bow speed down immediately. Slow. And so right at that moment, when you're slowing your arm, the hand can get a little tight. So the first thing is to make sure that the hand stays completely loose. All you're doing is changing the speed at which you open and close your elbow. Nothing else should change, okay? Now, there's another issue here as well, and that is you might be in the wrong part of the bow. So if you have, here's my rule. If you have a down bow, and right before the stroke preceding the down bow, okay, is either off the string or doesn't exist. In other words, there's silence. So if you are starting a bow and you're starting on a down bow, or a retake where you are in the air and then you have to bring your arm around. Okay, so down bows where there's nothing where there's nothing preceding it, or some sort of a lifted stroke. And even in a case like this, there's a little teeny bit of a lift, particularly if you're going faster. So the bow does come off, it releases enough weight that it, for all intents and purposes, it's like it's coming off the string. Okay, so when this happens, all right, you have one of these scenarios, that down bow must start at least at the balance point. Okay, you could start it here. So this is about the balance point. You could start it here all the way to the frog. All right, but it has to at least be here. You cannot be below or above. Okay, I guess this is above because the tip is up here. So it can't start here. This is where the bow wants to bounce. So if you have a quick bow change, or you are landing the bow, or you have a retake and you do it here or above, you're going to get a little bounce, and it's hard not to. I mean, it's really hard not to. So you have to get comfortable, bringing your arm up to the balance point. And my experience teaching is that many students are not as comfortable at the frog as they are at the tip. So I think that's the hurdle. That's the number 1 hurdle. And then, of course, tension in the right hand. So when you start that down bow, like I mentioned, your hand has to be very loose. You cannot be pressing under here with a thumb. It can't be like bent or locked or anything like that. Remember, Your joints in the hand are like your knees, you know. So if you are bouncing or jumping or going downstairs, you have to bend. You have to absorb the shock. So same with these, the knuckles in the hand. So release, 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 release. Okay. So hopefully that addresses the issue that you're having. Likely you might just be in the wrong part of the bow.